part 2 of what to consider when it comes to Turo. So if you haven't watched the first part or my first video, I would advise that you stop this video, watch the first one. It's not in any particular order, but just so you can kind of, stay in continuity and just kind of be up to speed with each one. So that way you catch part 1, part 2, part 3, part 4 when those start to come out. And you're covering each topic, right? Because I'm asking all the questions, or I'm answering all the questions that I once had questions or curiosities about before I actually ventured off into Turo. So keep in mind that I'm freestyling all this stuff. I'm writing my topics down, but I don't have anything scripted. So I'm literally just spitting it off the top of the dome as I'm going along, thinking about everything, being that I have it written on paper. So the first thing for this part 2 is a slow start. So one thing that everybody should keep in mind is that very much so like Airbnb, or very much so like eBay, or any other, peer-to-peer type of interaction, it's going to be solely based off of credibility, right? So for me, using myself as an example, when I first put I have a Honda Civic. So once I put my Honda Civic on there, even though I've seen other people putting it for $65, $70, and this is also very determinant of what market that you're in. And when I say market, I mean market as in Charlotte, which I'm currently residing right now, San Diego, Miami, Seattle, because depending on your market will also depend what vehicles will be the in the most high demand. So as a quick example, if you're in Miami, convertibles or coupes or anything that's a drop top may be in high demand. But if you're in, let's say somewhere that rains a lot, such as Seattle, especially during the rainy season, then I probably wouldn't advise you get a convertible or a coupe, because it's probably going to be sitting around a lot. So slow start. So, one thing that I had to keep in mind when I first started that nobody told me was that I'm not going to get what I want in the very beginning. You know what I mean? So you have to start off with $45, $50, because the one thing is, just as we sometimes do as, buyers, we try to find the best deal. So me, I had to put mine on there for about $45 to $50 a day, which is super cheap. Not to account for the fact that, Turo takes 20, 15, 10% based upon what type of insurance plan that you decide to go with. So you got to keep that in mind, right? So it's a slow start. So don't convince yourself or tell yourself that, oh, like as soon as I start doing Turo, I'm going to be a millionaire overnight. Like that's just not how it works. You know what I mean? You're going to need multiple cars in order to have all those different streams of income from those cars get you to what your end goal is, which I'm going to touch on in another video. Always have a goal in mind of what you want to reach, so that way you don't get discouraged too fast. Because I mean, when it comes to Turo, sometimes you may have some super good months, and sometimes you may have some slow months. So always keep that in mind. So don't just bank off the fact of like, oh, I have 5 Maseratis and a Lamborghini, so I'm going to be doing exceptionally well. That's not always the case, because you got to always think it's not us that's renting it from ourselves. It's everybody else. You know what I mean? We have to account for the type of season. We have to account for COVID. There's a lot of other, factors and variables that determine how much money you ultimately make. So slow start. So my recommendation for anybody that's trying to start, just keep in mind that you will have to start off very low, whether it be $45, $50. And then my advice to you is that once you get to about 5 to 10 5-star reviews, and now you're looked at where they could be like, oh, this guy has a reputation of being a good host, then you could start upping your price. But for the time being, in the very beginning, I wouldn't do it, because first off, you haven't built any trust as a host, and then you're asking, maybe 2 or 3 times what the cheaper vehicle could get them. So it's like, I'm gonna go for the better deal. That's from the aspect of a buyer or the guest. The type of vehicle, right? So I just touched on that. The type of vehicle is super dependent on where you're at, right? So I just left San Diego. So I have a friend of mine that's out there right now, and he has a lot of luxury cars. He had a Maserati, he has a Corvette. So those are doing great out there in San Diego. Now, let's say we change the market up. Let's say we go to, I'm trying to think of somewhere that may not have, let's say we go to Missouri, right? If we go to Missouri, a Maserati or a Corvette probably won't do as well, just because of the fact that it's a whole different market. It's a whole different audience and a whole different target group. You know what I mean? So always keep that in mind before you go to a dealership, and whatever you decide to do, whether it be finance or decide to lease a vehicle, which I will also cover in probably like part 3 or part 4, which is your best option. I'm not going to tell you now, you know what I mean? I want to be able to just kind of spit stuff out to you where it's not too fast, where it's not resonating. So the type of vehicle that's like literally pivotal for your success. The third and final thing for part 2 is customer service, right? So if you don't really have too much experience in customer service, I'll do a short video on some of my tips and tricks to, providing excellent customer service, just because I have, quite an experience as far as with, retail. I've worked at Zoomies, I've worked at Old Navy, I've been in the Navy for quite a while working admin. So I have a lot of experience with like one-on-one interaction and things of that nature. So my thing is customer service. If you're not a person that is patient, if you're not a person that understands other people's problems as far as like being empathetic, then it's probably not the right market for you, because first off, unless you have an instant booking, a lot of the time they have to message you and you guys have to talk about and discuss what their use of the vehicle is and things of that nature. And it's like, you have to try to be as accommodating as possible to your guests, not for the reviews and for the ratings, but because you want to make it a comfortable experience, because at the end of the day, they're going to give you an honest review. That's what the reviews are for. Before you go see a movie, you check the reviews to see if it's worth your time. So customer service is essential. Like if you don't have customer service skills, I would wait. Not saying that it's not for you, but you may want to wait a couple months or a couple weeks, do some reading, watch some videos, and try to figure out what's the best means for you to engage with your guests and make them comfortable, but not only comfortable, but accommodate them. But also in the same time, it's a kind of return on investment with you treating them a certain type of way. Once it's time for them to do your review, they're going to give you 5 stars, especially if you took, great care of your car, which I'm going to go over in part 5 as far as the best way to prep for an upcoming trip. Because a lot of these things I had to learn on my own, but there's a lot of things that you can do to separate yourself from the rest of the people that's on Turo. And let's say everybody starts watching this video and everybody starts to do the same thing. That's not necessarily a bad thing. At least we're creating the standard. So this is part 2. It's definitely over 7 minutes, but I hope you guys took some good notes and I hope you guys enjoyed the video. I try not to make it too much to where I'm rambling, but I hope you guys enjoyed. Stay tuned for part 3, part 4, part 5, and part 6, and everything else.